fascism and fascist is a very special category of people, and you should use it when it's really applicable and sparingly, because then people will believe you when you say it. And it has become too common to hear words like that, and that is a both sides problem. And last week we went through the litany of times that Donald Trump has used that rhetoric, and the fact that he came out after Charlie Kirk's tragic assassination and said the radical left did this, and then we heard a chorus of "we are at war." And that does permeate the entirety of American society, that they hear that from the top. We don't know
garbage.
that much.
That is absolute garbage.
It is.
Continue. When something terrible happens,
Greg,
when somebody gets murdered, you're saying, how dare you be enraged by it? Continue.
No,
Jessica Tarlov is here, being the brave final line of defense on Fox News, pointing out a relatively obvious fact, which is that political rhetoric in America has been dialed way up to 11, and that problem is a pervasive one that affects both the right and the left, and includes, obviously, our instigator-in-chief, Donald Trump. I mean, you have to be some sort of moron not to recognize that fact. So naturally, cue Greg Gutfeld.
What I say is, how dare
there is no, I'll give you the both. No, Jessica, I'll give you the both sides.
Greg,
I agree with you. There is both sides. On one hand, you have the hard left, and on the other hand, you have the left.
Why are you?
They're the both sides of the same coin, because you walk into this room and you're not reading it. There is no both sides. You don't have the evidence for that.
That's not true.
You can't say that Donald Trump says this. You guys act on it. You guys act on it. We don't.
What the hell is Greg Gutfeld even talking about? The right wing doesn't commit violence? I mean, I can think of thousands of examples. They celebrated the fact that Nancy Pelosi's husband got his head bashed in with a hammer. I mean, Kyle Rittenhouse is some sort of hero among the right wing because he killed people. And I seem to have a very vague and fuzzy memory of a certain outgoing president making a speech at the Capitol on January 6, 2021.
We're going to walk down, and I'll be there with you. We're going to walk down. We're going to walk down anyone you want, but I think right here we're going to walk down to the Capitol. And we're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. And we're probably not going to be cheering so much for some of them, because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength, and you have to be strong.
And then thousands of right-wingers acting upon his words. But what do I know? I'm just some dingus on the internet. But right now, they're talking about the Dallas ICE facility shooter. So Greg Gutfeld is foaming at the mouth because, according to him, the shooter was a left-wing extremist.
The left is causing the problem. They're out of control. They're saying things, and they're really dumb people. I mean, I look at Crockett. I look at some of these people. They're very low IQ people, actually. But the radical left is causing this problem, not the right, the radical left. And it's going to get worse, and ultimately it's going to go back on them. I mean, bad things happen when they play these games. And I'll give you a little clue. The right is a lot tougher than the left. But the right's not doing this. They're not doing it, and they better not get them energized, because it won't be good for the left. And I don't want to see that happen either. I'm the president of all the people. But
here we have our loon of a president who is essentially blaming the left for the entirety of violence in this country and threatening them before briefly remembering that he's the president of the entire United States and he's supposed to tamp down violence. He can't even keep his talking points from getting tangled up in his head. For 1 minute he says the right wing is tougher, and then he's like, oh, I don't want to say that because that's going to encourage them to act out on their toughness, and somebody told me I'm supposed to care about things like this. Despite what the president is struggling to say there, this is not an us versus them problem. This is a everybody chill out because the nuts have been emboldened problem on both sides. And Jessica Tarlov points this fact out.
Common denominator in all of this is that we have young men, usually young white men, who have access to these guns and are carrying out these tragedies. They are nihilists. They live online. And again, do you think it's normal that people are writing on casings anti-ICE? They think that it's a joke. You look at Tyler Robinson's text messages with his roommate and partner it reads like a joke. They just wanted us on Fox News to have to be able to read that stuff out loud. He even said it in the messages. So I get it. You're amped up. I don't think that I said anything worthy of that level of explosion.
Your rationalization of both sides. You have to understand, since Kurt's death, there is no both sides anymore, Jessica.
Why did the DOJ take down the study that showed how much right-wing extremism?
What study was that? Which one? The one in The Economist that was sponsored by a group run by a guy in Antifa? That study that has been discredited by the Federalists? You're walking down a really bad alley right now.
There are neo-Nazis and fascists and racists in this country. Does that mean that everybody on the right falls into one of those categories? Absolutely not. Have some on the left been radicalized by language like that to commit violence? Maybe, that certainly is possible. Has some on the right been radicalized by language like socialist and communist and pedophile to commit violence? Maybe so as well. Point is, Greg Gutfeld is making such a ridiculous and easily disprovable argument. I mean, the fact that he's saying that there is no right-wing violence in this country, which is such a stupid claim. I mean, many outlets have cited the same source that Jessica Tarlov is bringing up. And the FBI in recent years has come to similar conclusions that there has been an uptick in right-wing violence. And there, in the moment, there's an uptick in left-wing violence, or right-wing, left-wing violence. The point is, this is not an us versus them. And in fact, it is rhetoric that separates us out to us versus them that is increasing the amount of violent cases in this country.
How much does political rhetoric influence someone to move from saying words to doing something violent? Or does it?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things we'd seen, and I said this a year ago after Trump, the first assassination attempt against President Trump, was that it was only a matter of time with the kind of rhetoric that we see that we were going to get to political assassination. So, that's what I mean by expected. It sounds very cynical, but it was very predictable, shocking but not surprising is the way that I think of it. When you have political rhetoric that consistently positions us versus them in existential terms, when people online are celebrating the assassination of a United Healthcare executive, for example, that kind of violence being valorized, not just seen as a last type of solution, but as an acceptable or even preferable one. I think we're at a really very risky moment. I will say that the elected officials' rhetoric, the mostly bipartisan condemnation of the violence and of the idea that no one deserves to be shot, no matter how much you disagree with them, I think has been very clear. But among ordinary people, especially young people on social media, we have seen much more divisive rhetoric, both calling for civil war and celebrating the death of the killing of someone with whom people often vehemently disagreed. And so I think one of the things I've been urging people is to not just look to political leaders for solutions, but look across the dinner table. That's a moment to engage with dialogue and really try to walk back that rhetoric.
We are a nation that's becoming increasingly divided as of late, and it's sort of reaching a critical mass. First off, I don't understand why people like Greg Gutfeld keep using terms like we. Who is we? Who the hell is we? We don't act out on violence. Well, this is a nation of 350 million people, and a lot of them are utter bonkers, lunatics with guns. And some of those loons fall on the right. Some of those loons fall on the left. If that loon that shot Charlie Kirk was a Democrat or a leftist, that does not mean all Democrats and leftists are responsible just because one of us, got a gun and committed violence. If that loon who hit Paul Pelosi upside the head with a hammer happened to dislike Nancy Pelosi, that doesn't mean that everybody else that disliked Nancy Pelosi or dislikes Nancy Pelosi is responsible. It doesn't. So what about rhetoric? Okay, there's a difference between calling a spade and celebrating, condoning, and encouraging violence. The right wing seems to believe that we can no longer use terms like neo-Nazi, fascist, racist. Are those terms off limits? Why the hell would they be? If it's not off limits to be a neo-Nazi or fascist or racist, why would it be off limits to call them that? Nick Fuentes is a neo-Nazi. He celebrates Hitler. That makes him, and other things that are adjacent to Nazism. That makes him a neo-Nazi. Charlie Kirk has said many things that I would consider racist. It's not off limits to label that, but he was also a husband and a father and a human being, and it was tragic the way he was killed, and he should not have died. And if you're on the left and you're celebrating the fact that violence was committed against him, you are part of the problem. And if you're on the right and you're using terms like we're now at war and celebrating violence against the left, you are also part of the problem. Violence against any of us is violence against all of us. The bell tolls for thee. Wake up.